Hello, this is Todd Luck, and this is the final part of my review of Video Power. This was a video game TV show that aired from 1990 to 1991, and we're going to be taking a look at the second season where it was reimagined as a game show. So this was a syndicated series, so that means if your TV station picked it up, it may have aired it at various different points. Some people saw it in the morning, my station aired it in the afternoon. But regardless, the first season was basically kind of a TV video game magazine. You had live action segments with hints and tips and reviews, and then you had a cartoon called The Power Team with characters from various different games. I've already covered for the first season in 2 previous videos, so you can look at part 1 and part 2 of my review if you want to see my thoughts on that. What we're going to be looking at today is the second season with the game show where kids got to play video games competitively, and it ended probably with the most memorable sequence that sticks with a lot of people is a run through the mall for the champion where they get to just grab any video game they want, and if they can make it to the finish line at the end, they get it. We'll show that at the end, but we're going to take it down and show you each different segment of the show. And so let's start with some of the changes they made for the second season. They included a new theme song that will absolutely get stuck in your head. It's fun, it's catchy, and it has one of the most epic choruses ever.
Video power, power. My show is kicking with maximum hype. Say video power, yeah, that's right, word. I've got the ability to make you win. You want the edge? I'll push the power surge. Let her rip. Feel the power. Power. Feel the power. Video power.
Johnny Arcade now has a co-host, Terry.
Live from somewhere in America, it's TV's Big Half Hour Video Power.
But don't think Johnny Arcade's been demoted. They gave the man a damn throne for this season. He actually sits in the throne to do the Video Power Edge, which is tips and tricks for video games. This is the only part of the show that's carried over from last season. And just like last season, some of the tricks are quite good, and then some of them are kind of useless. And then we have Johnny on the Spot, where Terry goes in the audience and picks out the 4 contestants for that episode, and they each ask Johnny a question to try to stump him. And if Johnny can't answer the question, they get a prize. The answers are always worded in this very clever, kind of rhymey way that is clearly scripted, and after a while it becomes obvious that probably the kids were handed the questions as well.
Okay, go ahead, Nicholas.
What day does Paperboy end on?
Okay, the arcade won't be dazed with a question about days of the week. I'm no weakling. Ha, 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 weak. Paperboy's paper plight begins at the beginning of the work week, which is Monday. He rides, rolls, dodges, and delivers all through the week until the day that's better for rest than all the rest, Sunday. All right. Yeah.
So even though it's supposed to look like they're really asking him questions, it's an entirely scripted segment, and I guess the winners are just chosen at random. I just don't understand why they did that. But then again, wrestling is scripted, and they call that sports entertainment, so maybe this is the game show equivalent of that.
What do you get when you cross Hulk Hogan with Mr. Rogers? It's Johnny Arcade!
And then there's Power Play, where they bring all 4 contestants on stage to play video games competitively for a couple minutes. And so they're usually judged on how high they score within those couple minutes. But if there's no points in the game, which sometimes happens, depending on what the game is that week, they'll be judged on like their life meter. Terry is going to go around between the different screens, and he's going to give sports commentators sort of play-by-play, which unfortunately is not that useful. I really wish they had done direct feeds of the gameplay. I think that would have been much easier for us to figure out what was going on. It looked like chaos, I mean, you could tell they were playing, but not really who was doing better. Terry would sometimes call out a score that he would see on the screen, which could be somewhat helpful, but honestly, most of the play-by-play just wasn't that great. There was at least one time where he thought someone was leading who was clearly losing, so...
Now, if you don't know anything at all about video games, you're probably lost. It's okay. 7 points now, 8 points now.
And so, unfortunately, watching the gameplay just wasn't as exciting as one would think. However, there were some exceptions. The first episode I watched was Robocop, and they were supposed to play through the first level. And so your instinct would say, play through it as fast as you can, get as far as you can in the level, and that's how you get the most points. However, there's this one kid, Nicholas, who figures out all he has to do is stay in this one doorway, and these dogs will respawn over and over again. He kills them over and over again and doubles his points. He gets twice as many points as everyone else and just blows everyone away. That's just freaking genius. So the top two contestants from Power Play would go on to the quiz part of the show, and they would be asked different questions on video games, and whoever buzzed in first with the correct answer got the points for that question. And there were 50 points in all for this round that were up for play. And then there was also a video game that they would give away for one question. And Johnny would often make small talk, or try to, with the contestants at this point. And oftentimes it was weird. One of the criticisms that I see of the show is that Johnny Arcade was way too over the top. And I agree with that. The kids are obviously very young, very nervous. There's a big crowd, you know, cheering them on and all this stuff. And I understand Johnny wanted to kind of put them at ease, make them laugh. But unfortunately, it usually ended up being the opposite. Last season, I said that Johnny Arcade gave it his all, and I admired him for that. This season, I feel like he may have given a little too much.
Thank you very much, guys. What a job. I'd like to know, obviously you two know a lot about wrestling, right? You're into wrestling? Well, this question's been stumping me. Who the heck made up the Bushwhackers? You know? No? You know who made up the Bushwhackers? No. You know those guys with the ball heads? I'm sorry, I'm scaring you. Okay, here we go.
And something like that was happening almost every episode. Another common criticism of the show was that it was filled with inaccuracies about video games, and that is true. A lot of the questions just weren't correctly phrased. A lot of the answers were just not quite right. Probably the thing that bothered me more, though, was when the kids got the answers correct, but for some reason the judges just wouldn't accept it. I'm going to show you the gameplay footage just to illustrate my point, but they ask a kid what this boss throws at the turtles in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 for the NES, and the kid said ice rock, and they didn't accept it. They would only accept the answer boulder, but that looks like an ice rock to me. So there was a question about, in Batman for the NES, what projectile Killer Moth shoots at Batman, and the kid said fireballs, which is correct, but they insisted that it was mothballs. And if you don't believe your eyes, I'm showing you the gameplay footage right here. In the instruction manual, it is called fireballs. And then they would play another round of video games, this time head-to-head against each other. And if there was a two-player mode in the game, they would be playing simultaneously. And so, this had the same problems. It was kind of hard to tell what was going on and who was in the lead. However, they did play Battletoads for 1 week, and as you probably know, Battletoads is a two-player simultaneous game where you can actually hit each other for points, so it would typically devolve into a brawl in Battletoads, which was kind of fun. And so that round was worth 50 points, and whoever had the most points won, and they got to go through the mall. And you would run through the mall with a time limit, grabbing, any video game you could and sticking it on to your vest. If you got a special game, you would get a bigger prize, like a video game system, like a Neo Geo or Genesis or whatever. And then you had to go down the slide and hit the finish line before time ran out, but you would get all the prizes that you had on you at the end. And so I kept watching episodes, waiting for the kids to tie, and that happened a couple times. So if there was a tie during a video game round, say that both kids got the same amount of points, then they would look at a secondary factor like how much life they had left, and that would determine the winner. If a kid sweeped all the questions and got all 50 points from the quiz round, and then the other player won the video game round and got those 50 points, and we had a point tie overall, then they would look at which kid did the best in the first video game round, and that would determine the winner. At the end of each week, they would bring the winners back for a final for that week, and the winner would, of course, get, to go through them all again, get more prizes. And the winner of those Friday shows would go on to a finale where all the winners would play each other for that week, and then the winners from that would go on to the final episode of Video Power and become crowned the champion of Video Power. And I gotta say, the final video game they picked for the head-to-head competition was probably the most appropriate one for video game show that I could imagine. I'll let you guys look up that video and watch it. I don't want to spoil it. And the ultimate winner of the finale ended up getting a trip to Universal Studios, as well as $10,000 towards their education, and of course all the video game systems and video games and accessories that they'd won along the way, which was quite a bit. I gotta say, the prizes were really epic, especially watching it now. I mean, they gave away Wampum as a consolation prize. Everyone who is into retro gaming probably knows how rare that NES game is. They were just giving away casually games that we would just kill for nowadays. Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu and all this stuff. I mean, just really cool video games that, every kid in America wanted to be the winner and run through that mall and just, grab all these video games and put them on their vest, And people talk about season 2 of Video Power way more than they do season 1 nowadays. And that was probably just because it was so unique. Unfortunately, all that chatter doesn't mean that there's a lot of information about the show. Most reviews and most articles about it are just based on watching episodes. There's very little inside information. However, I did find on Reddit, there was one ex-contestant who did start a thread called something like, I was a contestant on Video Power, ask me anything. And he was really gracious and answered a lot of questions, and it was very informative. There was another person who claims to be an ex-contestant who wrote an article that is on several blogs, and it's really strange. You'll know it when you see it, because the premise is that he was angry that he went on the show in 6th grade and it didn't make him popular at school and get him dates. It's really just bizarrely hateful in nature. I mean, he insults the other kids who were contestants. Keep in mind, again, these are 6th graders. He says he hated all the prizes and stuff. And I was just like, if you didn't want them, believe me, I would have taken them. Every kid in the country would have taken them if you didn't want those games. But it's just so strange. He makes a lot of claims about the show, a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that I just can't verify. And I can't even verify the stuff he said that happened in the episode he was in, because I can't even find that episode online. It does exist according to the listings of the episodes you can find online. There's just no footage of it. So I kind of take that article with a grain of salt, and I'm sorry that this kid didn't get laid in 6th grade after going on Video Power. And so I do see the draw of the game show and why it's so memorable to the kids who grew up watching it. I wish they had done a better job on the show of making sure the answers and the questions were accurate and the tips and all that stuff. However, I do understand how hard it is to get everything right on deadline. We're all human. We all make mistakes. Heck, I called Mr. Big Boss, the entire last video I did, so mistakes do happen. And like I said about season 1, the internet has pretty much become Video Power, right? We can all post gameplay footage and we can see any game we want to at any time. And as far as competitive gameplay nowadays, there's always tournaments for like every video game that you can think of, and you can watch like professional competitive play on YouTube and Twitch and all this stuff. So it really was well ahead of its time, and I do admire it for kind of going into that territory and trying to do something that would become standard practice today. And so that's it. That's all my thoughts on Video Power. Like and subscribe for more videos, and until next time,
Game over.